All right, so talking about best practices, I'm just gonna move on. And we're gonna start with Krashen. Krashen hypothesis about comprehensible input is that teachers need to build from what the student already knows and add more information in a way that is meaningful and can be understood by the student. So that's basically what you were supposed to be researching or looking for. The theory that Krashen says, and that is basically implied in most of the teaching practices that you and me are using right now, is that the students need external information, something that means something for them. I don't know if it has happened to you that most of the times in the textbooks or any random activity that you will get from the internet, you will use most of the time different topics or maybe um, like pop-up questions to get your students' attention. But perhaps the topic that you have chosen or the idea that you want to develop with the class is not the most accurate one, or maybe it's like really far from the social context or the cognitive context from your students. By this means, what I'm trying to say is that in Mexico, we have such a different variety of situations where you can be teaching in a school that I think the main responsibility that you have when you are in front of a class and you really want to make sure you are doing a meaningful second language class is that you have prepared and you have selected special and relatable material with your students. And to be honest, people, I mean, let's face it, it is a lot of work. Most of the times, it takes a lot of your time and takes a lot of hours to be selecting and scaffolding all the activities that you want to do. But I mean, if you're passionate about this, like me, well, most of the times you end up finding the time, and you end up taking your job or your responsibilities, as this text says, in a comprehensible way. Let me just go keep my dog quiet. Alrighty, I'm back. Okay, let's move on. By adding meaningful content and vocabulary in a scaffolded or comprehensible way, instructors can increase learning without raising the student's affective filter. What is the relationship that you have with the language that you are teaching? What is the relationship that your students have with the L2 they are taking the class from? Most of the times, if we can recall some of our memories when we were in middle school or junior high or elementary, perhaps some of us will have like quite fresh some memories or ideas that we have related to a second language class. I don't know. It has to be everything about the relationship that you as a teacher will have with the content and the discipline that you possess around or revolving the language you're supposed to be prepared for. That is why Krashen mentioned this about the affective filter. What is the affective approach you use in your classes to present the content or the language? Anyone from here, do you have like a fresh memory or something that you can recall from your earlier years as a student? Something that you remember that was like quite impressive or disappointing or, I don't know, related to an English teacher? Anyone?
Can I participate, teacher?
Sure, go ahead. Thank you. Yes.
Well, when I was in middle school, I remember that my first English teacher was amazing. I used to love him a lot because he was really, really, really good.
Okay.
And then in my second year of middle school, I remember that he said, like, oh, I'm gonna give you class anymore because I have to go and give class in the university. And I was like, oh, and then we got this teacher. He was not an English teacher. He was like, I don't remember, I think like my math teacher. And he was teaching us English, but basically he was like, oh, like, copy this and copy this. And then solve this exercise from the book and I don't know apply, which was like kind of sad. So I remember about that because I'm really good. So that really was sad.
Yeah, like you were having such a good practice in front of you, and then suddenly you will have like this really slow paced teacher, like only doing like the basic duties, right? Like no, not going far or beyond what you're supposed to be doing in front of a class. So thank you, Daphne. I think that is precisely what Krashen mentions about the affective filter. We are not really aware. Let me just tell you this. We as teachers or future teachers, it has happened to me a lot of times. I think we are not really aware the impact or the how I don't know which other word I can use that you leave in some of your students. I have run into people going, I don't know, into the supermarket or any other place, and I will have people coming forward to me like, oh my God, you were my teacher. I remember you were doing this or you were doing that during my classes. It was such a good time, blah, blah, blah. And to be honest, most of those practices I have forgotten. Why was I doing that or the reasons? But at the end of the day, the idea that comes with me and stays with me is that I was doing all those things because I was really passionate about it. Lo comparto en español para que quede más claro. A mí me ha pasado que me topo personas después que yo di una clase y que me decían, maestro Tarango, usted nos ponía esto y se disfrazaba y hacía esto y bla, bla. Ya después, entre paréntesis, me da un poco de pena porque yo digo, qué tonterías andaba haciendo yo ahí enfrente de la clase, pero al final de cuentas me convenzo a mí mismo que lo hacía porque yo estaba buscando la manera de hacer una clase efectiva. Creo que si no me gustara la docencia desde ese sentido, desde ese filtro que menciona Krashen, no me hubiera animado, y créanmelo, se los digo, a ponerme una peluca, a estar haciendo cualquier cosa que te tienes que poner de cabeza para tú asegurarte que tu clase está teniendo movimiento y que está teniendo significado. Entonces, hacia allá vamos con esta Krashen. Yo lo considero que es en cuanto a todos los programas de enseñanza, en cuanto a todas las escuelas que tú hayas de idiomas, en cuanto a todos ¿cómo se llama? Los currículums, no currículums, los planes de estudio que tú revises. Creo que Krashen va implícito en la mayoría de las metodologías y de los approaches, porque derivado de eso, si nosotros recordamos la reforma educativa del 2018, que fue un replanteamiento pedagógico totalmente estructural a base de los aprendizajes para la educación integral. El área de comunicación y lenguaje tuvo un reestructuramiento totalmente completo, totalmente integral, y tiene mucho que ver con las sugerencias y esta ambivalencia que se le daba al maestro en básica de, ok, reconocemos que el programa de inglés en educación básica va diferido, pero por favor, en el stage en el que estés recibiendo a tus chicos, en la etapa en la que los estés recibiendo, independientemente del nivel, asegúrate de que estás elaborando un ambiente de aprendizaje. Y eso tuvo que ver mucho con reconocer que el programa desde preescolar hasta secundaria pues fue un programa fallido porque en la parte administrativa tuvo muchos huecos, pero el planteamiento pedagógico, si ustedes se han dado la tarea de revisar el compendio que yo les mostraba la clase pasada, te ilustra mucho sobre por qué los temas que mete el plan y programas, en este caso de secundaria, que es lo que yo domino un poco más, por qué esa selección de temas y cómo lo puedes desmenuzar o modular al tipo de público que tengas, ya sea que estés en el estado de Oaxaca o en el estado de Nuevo León. Hay ideas muy ricas en cuanto a la práctica en aprendizajes clave que creo que a veces damos por sentadas o subestimamos un poco, que no nos van a servir de nada y vale la pena revisarlo. All right, I move on. Then we go with this guy over here that is one of the other basic approaches and things and theories we have to have in mind every time we are working with people. Vygotsky's ZPD theory focuses on the high level of problem solving or cognitive activity that results from scaffolding or working with another to stretch oneself from one's level to a higher level through meaningful scaffolded interaction. According to Latfall and Apple in 1994, what you as a teacher are supposed to be doing if you want to recall yourself a Vygotsky fan or a Vygotsky influence teacher in your practice, you are supposed to have during your session spaces or time or activities dedicated to the social interaction with your students. You cannot call yourself an English teacher that is doing an effective practice if you, in your lessons, don't have time or any activity prepared for this. Because at the end of the day, you are trying to make meaningful use of something that is a language, and a language cannot be used if we don't have space for communication. That takes us to the last pillar or backbone of the teaching practice, that is the CLT, communicative language teaching. This was originated in 1966 by Dale Hymes in response to Noam Chomsky theories of universal grammar and linguistic competence. The theory from Chomsky basically says that the language is like any scientific or mathematical formula and can be thought and practiced and rebuilt if you learn or you memorize or you learn by heart specific features or specific words. So if you approach to the language according to Chomsky, you're gonna leave out all the meaningful content and all the meaningful ambience that Krashen is asking you to put into your practice. Well, that's why I think Chomsky is out of the league right now. And a few years ago, he was like, well, the theory was like completely out of time. The theory of communicative competence was further developed by Canali and Swain in 1988, and Widowson, Selse, and Murcia in 1993. I'm going to talk about Murcia, this author, later on because she created like an interesting approach from the CLT. These people later develop the essential components of a meaningful and authentic communication. It is this emphasis on communicative competence that is important for ESL students to feel successful in their community classrooms and the many other settings in which they wish to use English. If I want to make sure I, as a teacher, am feeling authentic in my practice and that I'm giving meaningful activities in my lesson, listen to this. You have to believe that the activities and the use of language that you're putting into your classes is going to make sense out of your class. Okay? If you're working in simple, robotized, control conversations all the time, I'm not saying that it is bad to control your conversation drills, your dialogue, templates, whatever. It's okay. You have to do it, especially with beginners. But if you keep doing that, all of your practice for all of the situations, you are not going to place your students in any other different moment or relationship with the language itself, because the language practice would always be and will have become something that they just have to do compulsory, mandatory, because I need to get a grade and that's my exit ticket to get out of the class, and that will be it. So according to the CLT and according to Krashen, there is a huge responsibility that if I will ask some of you, are you quite aware or are you sure that the content and the communication that takes place inside your classrooms makes any sense out of there? Like for real? Can they use those sentences? Can they use those topics that you're asking them to do out of the class in a second language environment? Would it make any sense? If your answer is yes, well, good for you and congratulations, because I know for a fact that you're taking your time to prepare these lessons according to what is going on right now. And talking about that, later on, we're going to be discussing the social and political agenda and how can you have an idea on how to integrate this political agenda that we're living on right now into your classes. If I have to be honest, when I was checking the how was I integrating the course, I have never had the I have never taken the time to check this matter. Like, is it really important that, or it doesn't make any sense that I'm an English teacher and I have to be talking in my classes about what's going on about global warming or what's going on about, I don't know, gender perspective or whatever. But huge news or breaking news, it does matter. It is what you are supposed to be doing right now with these kids, because social agenda is changing every day. And I think if you go to any secondary school or any elementary school in Mexico, you will realize that most of these schools are like, I don't have the expression in English, like, well, stuck in time. Like, there's a different reality that's going on over there, and the world is getting bigger and different all the time and changing all the time. But it seems like in public schools in Mexico, the world stays the same. There is no space for any other changes, and I think it's kind of sad. All right, I'm going to move on because we have an activity. So now we're going to be talking about effective, communicative, and comprehensible tips to approach our practice to it. Let me just go back. Krashen, Vygotsky, and CLT, these three backbones of the teaching practice, what are they asking for you? Or what do they want from you? They want effectiveness, communicative skills, visible, tangible in your lesson, and They want you to make all this in a comprehensible way, in a user-friendly way to your students. And if I say user-friendly, it's because I'm talking about taking your students' interest and your students' attention and putting it into your practice. So we're going to check some techniques that they have worked for me. I have used them for a long time during right now I have like 11 years of teaching experience. So some of these practices, I took them and I learned them during my normal superior, and still I'm using them in my language classes. Krashen is a leader in ESL and an author the theory of the second language acquisition, which has 5 hypotheses. This important theory is studied by all future teachers of ESL students. So, if before this course you have never heard of the theory of language acquisition by Stephen Krashen, it is time for you to Google it, research it, download the researches about Stephen Krashen, and take your time, because you are going to find during that journey very valuable information about your practice. In his input hypothesis, because he was one of the first developers of this terminology that we have, like input and output skills, Krashen and Terrell hypothesized that an individual's listening and reading abilities are paramount, are the most relevant, are the most important, are the most effective, and that productive skills of speaking and writing will follow. This means listening and reading, they have to exist and they have to cohabit in your lessons all the time. Maybe if you have your class 3 days a week, be my guest. Maybe one of those 3 lessons you can have a speaking assessment activity. That would be nice. That would be okay. But people, just make sure that during your lessons, all those lessons on your week, you're giving your students listening and reading input all the time. You're not gonna get lost doing this. Your students will keep receiving and will be getting all this stimulation. It's not something that they're going to memorize. It's not supposed, it's not created so the students will memorize each part of the song that you're playing in the background for your class. It's not supposed to happen something like the students are going to remember each and every single word that you presented to them in a magazine that you took from your last trip to the United States. But just let me share this. If in every single one of your lessons you are including input skills, the outcome, cuando se te dé la gana poner un productive skills en práctica como un speaking y un writing, tus resultados sí van a ser diferentes. Because the input is going to be there all the time. Sorry for my runny nose. All right. When a person has been given a sufficient amount of comprehensible input, the person will acquire enough competence to speak and write. This is according to the input and output theory from Krashen. These authors also argue that the input that parents and teachers give should be roughly tuned. Every time you check something in the terms of roughly tuned, when you talk to your students, you are doing it. You are modeling the language. And when we say that we are roughly tuning something, is that we're making it simple. Simplified enough to be roughly understood, like on the edge. El último recurso de cualquier teacher será el grammar translation method. Antes de darle la palabra en español, ya hiciste malabares, te pusiste de cabeza en el salón para que te entendieran la palabra, pero tu último research será el uso del español y la interferencia del L1. This also has the benefit of reaching more students in the group who may be at various levels of language acquisition. Si estás usando música todo el tiempo, música en inglés con diferente complejidad de vocabulario, well, you never know. Maybe one of your students is only motivated because she likes the music, but maybe one of your other students, she is motivated because she understands the whole thing. Y así es como cubres todo un rango de tus estudiantes. With draft tuning, the students are more likely to hear language reused and reviewed. This will ensure that they hear and can understand the language better and find the lessons more interesting than if a teacher were simply focused on one particular area of grammar and precisely the correct level. Sí, tu chamba es enseñar la gramática, pero utiliza el roughly tuned technique para llevar a que el chavo construya lo que pueda construir con sus herramientas antes de que le empieces a hablar de que le estás hablando de los adverbios de frecuencia, porque si me estás hablando primero a mí me estás poniendo una rola de Metallica para reconocer tal o cual palabra y después me hablas de los adverbios de frecuencia, me va a dar mucha flojera. So that's what happens in most of the lessons, okay? Let me just continue.
Teacher, your micro.
Sorry, yeah, I was cleaning my nose. That's why I put it out.
Teacher.
It's okay. All right. So I'm going to share this with you, and let me just put on my other camera. Let's see if I can do it. And then let's see. Oh, yes, you can see me. All right. Okay, so this is a roughly tuned technique. And this is like a step-by-step on what you can do when it's time to present new vocabulary, or if you just want to take your time during a whole lesson to focus on a particular word, and from that, it will lead you and it will take you to different ideas and different activities you can work with the class. So, if you check here, it says, learn new words, use this procedure when possible. Look at the word, listen to the word in a sentence, say the word, spell the word, say the word again, break the word into syllables. This technique, you can use it like maybe half the teacher, half the student, or you can have the teacher doing the whole thing. So I'm going to go with this first word. Can you check it there? Yes? I have the word velvet. Yes? So just pay attention. You're looking at the word. Listen. Velvet. Velvet is red. Now, can I hear all of you? Velvet. Okay, thank you. Can you spell the word? Yes. Thank you. Now, say the word again. Now, just pay attention to this. We have two separated syllables. Velvet. You. So, this type of activities is like a fancier roughly tuned technique. Este tipo de actividad que acabamos de hacer es como que un roughly tune más técnico o más pimpeado, más elegante, porque te da un step by step de en qué consiste esta técnica del roughly tune. Esto En otras circunstancias, tú lo estarías haciendo en tu pizarrón, con tu marcador en mano, con la mano ya toda llena de tinta, volviéndote loco explicando la palabra. Así como que, please, come on, it's velvet. Yes, but what you have missed, ya cuando estás estirándote los pelos de que no agarran la palabra velvet, entonces viene esta técnica que se deriva de lo que nos dice Krashen y nos dice, ok, teacher, breathe, take 5. This is a step-by-step of what you're supposed to be doing every time you want to detonate new vocabulary to your class. And it's a practical and it's a very useful way to use it. Now just pay attention to this. And this I was told by another teacher. Esto me lo dijo otra maestra. It is not necessarily compulsory that you will perform all these actions like in 1 minute. No necesariamente quiere decir que voy a estar realizando esta sección o esta secuencia de pasos en menos de 1 minuto todo el tiempo. I can find transitional spaces. Puedo encontrar espacios de transición en mi clase donde yo esté trabajando el roughly tune. ¿Ya? Y me pueden acompañar en toda la lección. Por supuesto también, si es una palabra que me va a ayudar a detonar el tema de la clase, lo más conveniente es tenerlo a lo mejor como un warmer, a lo mejor como un icebreaker. Pero quiere decir que también se puede optimizar y se puede desarrollar a lo largo de toda una lección. Cada uno de los verbos que tengo ahí, de los commands, look, listen, say, spell, say, I have like any possibility that whatever I want to do with those words, because over here we're talking only about this one, okay? But maybe you can have a 20 list, 20 words list, and that will be okay. All right, so let's go with this one, and I'm going to ask, let's see, Valeria, can you be the teacher for us, and can you take us through this word?
Yes.
All right.
Just let me say the. Okay, yes. Can you do the word, please? And then I will say the word, and it's salary. Can you? Okay. The salary is. Can you do the word, the first, please?
Celery. C-E-L-E-R-Y. Celery. Thank you very much. That was a good example as well. So the important thing about the roughly tuned technique is that, I mean, you cannot do it because you don't have this, the words that I just wrote, but it includes a lot of movement, you see. Even though you're doing this technique, your body language has to do a lot with what you're trying to pursue here with your students. So just keep that in mind. If we want to elicitate vocabulary and we are having trouble with a specific word, just let me tell you this. It doesn't mean that you're going to spend 60 or 40 minutes working on the velvet work. That's not going to be your lesson plan. but maybe the word that you are presenting is going to help you to create, write, listen, read the rest of the activities that you are preparing. That's what I'm trying to tell you here. I'm not asking you like, okay, prepare a 60-minute lesson about velvet. Like, what else can you say about velvet? That's not the point. It's just like a technique you can use in any other circumstance, in any other related topic. Okay? Thank you very much. All right. Let's move on because I have another one. So, well, it was like your turn. Now, let's talk about this one. And this one, I will say that is one of my favorites. All right, my call is going to finish in 10 minutes because I'm using my personal account. So, as soon as the video call drops, I will send you a new link, okay, on the WhatsApp chat. Just pay attention to that. So I will say this is one of my favorites. I don't know if you have heard it before, but it's like, again, an ancient technique when it comes to working in communicative abilities, teaching any language, anyone, not just English. This is the Freyer model technique. Let's just take a moment, people, and pay attention to what you have on the image. Like, what is the information that I'm asking you or that you have related to the new word that you are implying to your class? On this example, you have the word volcano. And then you have 4 different headlines. You have the headline, my teacher says this word means. And then you have the headline for the illustration, and then you have the headline for connections, and then you have the one about sentence examples. Okay? So the Freyer model technique is a graphic organizer to build vocabulary, but not not like random vocabulary. The Freyer model gives you like an opportunity to create lexicon. When we talk about lexicon, it's a different term from vocabulary, and we're going to check it in a minute. Lexicon is all the skills, all the information that you can use related to specific words in a language. Okay, so it's different. This technique requires students to define target vocabulary and apply their knowledge by generating examples and non-examples. By non-examples, we can talk about drawing or synonyms or antonyms. We're going to check like a variety of those. This information is placed on a chart that is divided into 4 sections to provide a visual representation for students. And this is very valuable. What do you think? Maybe creating like a end of term glossary built on Freyer model technique, where your students will pick up or select specific terms or specific words during the whole school year, and they will deliver this. Si tus estudiantes seleccionaran o elaboraran, por ejemplo, un glosario basado en el modelo Freyer como producto final, no te estarían entregando una lista de vocabulario de 4 o de 5 palabras. Estaríamos poniendo en práctica el CLT, pero un poco más expandido, con la parte de la cognición respecto a la palabra, porque cubre la necesidad de aquel alumno que es visual, cubre la necesidad de aquel alumno que puede llegar a ser kinestésico y que tenga diferentes actividades que elaborar al mismo tiempo. Y por supuesto, cubre las necesidades del alumno que aprende de manera estándar, que aprende con la estimulación a lectoescritura, y está bien. Entonces, el modelo o la técnica del Freyer Model te permite no crear un vocabulario, te permite crear el lexicon. Lexicon es el uso de la palabra del idioma que yo domino, pero aplicado en contexto, en oraciones, en ejemplos y con alcances gramaticales. Domino sus sinónimos, domino sus antónimos, identifico si tiene sufijos, prefijos, etcétera. No me voy tan adentro que yo domine la etimología de la palabra. No, no me voy a poner con mi chavo a decirle volcano derivado del latín. I mean, that's not my work. Pero puedo llegar a ese tipo de cogniciones. Ok, me quedan 6 minutos. It's okay. The Freyer model is a long-standing graphic organizer that has been deployed in classroom with success for decades. This is the lady which created the Freyer model, Dorothy Freyer, from the University of Wisconsin. It is a simple but effective model to help students to organize their understanding of a new academic term or complex vocabulary choice. So this is very good for exams as well, because you can create a whole reading and writing assessing evaluation with a Freyer model technique, and you can have the opportunity to evaluate and to assess different skills of the language in the same work, in the same activity. Let's watch this. Let's see if we can Freyer model technique. Okay, let me look for the video. Give me 1 second. So I have just prepared this. This is a 3-minute video about an elementary teacher describing in a deeper way, with a more approachable or relatable example of how she uses the Freyer method or the Freyer technique. This is not an ESL class, but just pay attention to the implications that has for our jobs as EFL teachers. And I think you can relate to most of the actions that she finds in the technique.
The Freyer model is a tool for teaching vocabulary in a very direct way. And it's a kind of a four-square model where the students write the word that is a really important vocabulary word. We call them deaf words here in school. And they write it in the middle of the model. And then there are 4 different ways they connect with what the word means with the definition. They learn the exact definition of the word. They draw a picture of the word. They use the word in a sentence, and then they make connections from this word to other content areas. I've used the document in class by giving them all their own copy of the Freyer model. And then I either put the copy up on a TV screen for them to see as I write down each section, what goes in each section, or I use the board and do it on the board. I put a copy of this Freyer model on the board yesterday. So we talk through each area one at a time. And before we do the definition, I invite them to tell me what they think the definition is. And I'm trying to take all of the definitions and weave them into the one that I really want us to have. Paula said the word sphere. She says a planet has something to do with geometry. A planet has a sphere. Remember the spheres that we like everybody? Okay. So I like that. And these are putting all these definitions together and see what we can do. For the picture race, we're going to use, and I do a picture race and let them have freedom to draw their own picture and what exact things like this. Goes right back to the word. We tie a picture to a definition that really has 2 things that we want to talk about. And then we can echo. And this one, all of the side of the universe. And sampling sentences, we brainstorm some sentences, and in the end, they write a sentence that makes sense for them. And then we all get the same question. I like the Freyer because I've seen so much work from home, and my students have been Scores. I like to because they understand to different ways that you learn. You have to learn and you have different examples so you can understand my students like the grammar because they really enjoy knowing what a word means, exactly what it means. They enjoy drawing. I have a lot of artists in my class where there's some of them I have kids who are artists.
Don't panic. Don't panic. Let's begin again. Okay, let's wait for this. Alright, stay with me and we'll continue with the video.
They can hear me take a definition and they can write it down and remember it. They like being put in the context of a sentence and to impress everybody by their knowledge and get the definition of a picture that others will get. And then they like making connections with
Right, so let's continue over here. The Freyer model assists students to learn the meanings and applications of unfamiliar words and concepts. It is not a vocabulary activity with the only purpose or with the only goal or objective to just present words. With this technique in the Freyer concept, the Freyer model, you're trying to take your students' vocabulary abilities beyond, especially in ESL and EFL environments. This strategy can help your students to identify, understand, learn new vocabulary, and build their lexicon. This is a very important word you have to keep in mind. every time you're going for speaking, reading, or any input or output activity. What happens most of the times when you are working with a textbook or with any other activity that you will find on the internet and you will think it's suitable for your class? I bet most of the times you don't even checked or underline or identify the idea, the message, or the language used that you are putting into your class thanks to the vocabulary you are going to need. So, does it make any sense? The activity that I have just chosen that has these particular words in it, is it going to make any sense for my students or not? Those words, are they going to help my students to create some other ideas, or they're just going to be isolated words? Esas palabras que yo seleccione, ¿van a ser palabras simplemente que existan en mi clase porque ahí viene la actividad y ya? ¿O van a poder llevarme a mí, ayudarme a llevar a la clase a otra situación de comunicación donde pueda generarse este lexicon del que hablamos? Lexicon is my relationship with the words. The fact that I know as a student how to use them. What type of words are they? Do they have similar words? Do they have opponent word like antonyms? Do they have any use in a sentence or in an illustration? I don't know. It goes like any further as you want to take it. It activates past knowledge, links it to the new concepts, and stimulates critical analysis of the information. Okay? And this is what I wanted to make sure that it's very that is clear for all of us. Lexicon versus vocabulary. Vocabulary will be just a list of words a person knows of a particular language. Like, for example, you and me can say that we know the words from Spanish that are fruits, like manzana, sandía, pera, whatever, okay? But it's different that lexicon. Lexicon is a list of words along with its related knowledge on their linguistic significance and usage. Vocabulary defines the list of words a person knows of a language. Lexicon has a broader coverage on the linguistic significance and the usage of the words in a language. Cuando estaba revisando este tema, uno de mis estudiantes de octavo me dijo, de séptimo, perdón, me dijo, maestro, ¿cuál es el punto del uso del lexicon si al final de cuentas nuestros estudiantes están en una situación que es EFL, que es el ambiente del English as a Foreign Language? No estamos en un ambiente ESL, que quiere decir que el estímulo del L2 va a continuar al terminar la clase. Lo que le dije es que con la técnica del Freyer Model y teniendo en cuenta el concepto del lexicon, sí nos ayuda un poco más a entender el tipo de palabras que seleccionamos y el tipo de contenidos que seleccionamos para la clase. No me puedo dar el lujo, y creo que no es justo para los alumnos en secundaria o en primaria, que tú les selecciones palabras que de verdad fuera de la clase no van a tener sin ningún sentido de uso y no lo van a poder visualizar en ninguna otra situación o en ningún otro contexto. A eso es a lo que me refiero con el lexicon. Lexicon me permite dar un contexto lingüístico, que yo me siento en dominio de la estructura que ya revisé y que puedo ser capaz, ya estamos hablando de un nivel avanzado, incluso hasta de reconocer un poco de pragmática en el lenguaje. La pragmática es la influencia del contexto en la definición de las palabras. Y pues por pragmática podemos entender que nos podemos también ir a la parte de lingüística, de entender parábolas, de entender humor negro, de entender, no sé, diferentes aspectos del idioma que una lista de vocabulario por sí sola no me va a llevar. Pero si tengo presente que quiero detonar en mis chicos de la clase el contexto del lexicon con el Fryer Model, creo que va a ser un poco más viable cuando yo me dé a la tarea de más adelante presentarles un material que nosotros le llamamos en inglés el Realia. ¿Han escuchado ustedes del Realia material? Well, Realia material, it's like todo el material que tú lleves a la clase y que sepas que fue elaborado y fue constituido y fue producido en un material totalmente auténtico. Si te pones a pensar, la mayoría de las prácticas que tenemos con el idioma son ejercicios que nosotros tomamos y que fueron modelados por una editorial o por otro maestro precisamente para generar un tipo de clase, una estructura de clase que pueda cumplir con los estándares de un plan y programas y de una, ¿cómo se llama? De un syllabus, de un programa establecido. Pero muchas veces nuestros estudiantes no llegan a tocar este material que nosotros identificamos ya como realia, que es ese material que es de uso auténtico, que cualquier hablante anglosajón va a poder dominar y va a poder utilizar y que nuestros estudiantes puedan tener acceso a ese material. A ver si hice esto. No, esto. Permíteme. All right, we're going to continue after we have finished with this lexicon. I wanted to show you this. This is like a reinterpretation, or a variety of the Fryer model. And over here we have like different statements from the teacher. We have definition, we have synonyms, we have sentence, and we have picture. The word is promise. So it has certain flexibility when it comes to what you want to obtain from the Fryer model. Lo que nos queda claro con este ejemplo es que tiene cierta flexibilidad la técnica de Fryer para yo obtener aquella información que me sea más útil para las producciones de lenguaje que yo quiera hacer más adelante. A diferencia del primer ejemplo, aquí tenemos ya incluida el aspecto de los sinónimos. Mantengo una definición estándar, no una definición que el maestro establece por default. La parte de la ilustración continúa igual y la parte del uso en una oración continúa igual. El uso de una oración, ¿debería enfocarme yo en el aspecto gramatical o en la estructura de la oración que yo maneje? No. No me interesa la gramática de la oración, me interesa el uso de la palabra en la oración, es decir, el contexto. Puedo elaborar una oración a partir del significado que ya le di a la palabra. Así sea una oración tan simple como que lleve una acción, un pronombre y un complemento, me doy por bien servido, porque estoy logrando la cognición de integrar por completo definición, sinónimo, ilustración y oración. Y eso, señores, pues es lo que llamamos lexicon. ¿Okay? Es una interpretación más allá de una palabra que forme parte de un banco de palabras. This is another example. And this, I would say, it goes for a more advanced class. You have the definition, synonyms or antonyms, you have an adjective which is more complicated to perform. Un adjetivo es todavía un poco más complejo de definir muchas veces, porque requiere otro tipo de estructura gramatical. And then you have the picture. So over here it says rippled as an adjective. It's like ruffle, crinkle, or wavy. And as an antonym, it goes like even or flat. This word makes me think of una parte que tiene esta variante del Freyer Model es el detonante para una actividad de lectura. Si te fijas, por eso viene la parte de esta palabra me hace pensar porque a partir de ahí yo podría trabajar también con a lo mejor un ensayo o un writing assessment un poco más elaborado. Y también sería válido. Pero todo, otra vez, desde el contenido y la diferencia de una lista de vocabulario y del lexicon. That it will be like a whole different idea. Let's see if you can do it. This is your time. So over here you have the example. This is wax, the word, and I have given to all of you a particular meaning. As your teacher, I gave you already a particular meaning. So right now on your screens, you have this. Ahora mismo en sus pantallas ustedes tienen esto. These are the headlines. Voy a irme a los headlines. This is the one. Illustration, connections, and sentence examples. My teacher says this word means a substance secreted by honeybees. And then you have illustration, sentence examples, and connections. When we talk about connections, we're talking about any other random new word, phrase, quote, song, anything communicative that you have heard and that you relate to the word wax. So, be my guest. Let's give you a few minutes to work on your performance activity. ¿Alguien por ahí levantó la mano? Yes, Hania? Sure. I'll put it on the chat again. Lo pondré en el chat nuevamente. There you go.